right click.
You just gotta learn how to use the macros.
I know.
Man.
I don't work with timer.
Well, I guess maybe it's because I hear on.
Yours isn't more neat. say? Oh, just joined in then. Okay, so for everybody watching this on the playback, if you're catching this on Facebook, there's a link in the description that will take you to our live stream on YouTube, so you can join us that way, and we will see you on the other side. Yeah? Are you trying to navigate this crazy thing called life? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unraveling with Rayne. Remember, you'll have to get that up and ready for the wide shot too. Hey guys! First live feed, that's bound to happen, right? I'm here with Caitlynn Honeycutt, and we are going to dive into a lot of different things, and I'm very excited to chat with her today, so thank you for coming.
Of course. My pleasure.
Very cool. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first?
So, my name is Caitlynn Honeycutt, and I've been, do you want me to look at you, or do you want me to look at the camera?
Either way.
Because that's like the most distracting part.
Camera.
Like, who do I
Not
talk to
camera.
actually
Camera.
right now? Gosh. It's hard to say because I normally, naturally, I want to say I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3 kids because that was like my role for so long.
Yeah.
But now that I'm actually like working outside of the house, I'm like, oh shoot, like I kind of do have like other things that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I work as a bud tender at Green to Go. So if you don't know what that is, it's a recreational cannabis shop. So I work there. That's really been my first gig since being a stay-at-home mom of 3. All my kids are 4, almost 3, and just turned 1. So
Real close.
yeah.
Really, really close. I bet you it's like a whirlwind in your home at times.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I have to like take a deep breath before I walk in, after I get off of work.
Back into the chaos. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, my kids are spaced out 3 and 4 years apart, so even then it gets a little busy, but so good on you, Mama. Good on you.
Thanks. Sometimes I'm like, what have I done? I love them to death, but you're definitely like outnumbered,
Yeah.
as you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like everybody always told me that, you know, the jump from 1 to 2 would be what does it for you, but that's not how it worked for me. Like it was from 2 to 3 that I was like, oh,
I better pump the brakes.
We're in a whole new realm now. So
yeah. One time a guy explained it to me. He goes, it's like when you go from man-to-man coverage to zone,
right?
You know, zone defense or whatever. Man-to-man defense to zone coverage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely what it feels like, especially if you're alone at the grocery store with them. You're like, oh my gosh. You almost feel like you have to prioritize certain children because you're like, oh my gosh, if that one runs off, who am I gonna leave to go get that one and make that one less important?
Right, totally. I try to avoid going grocery shopping with all 3 of them if I can, but you know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get cooped up for too long and you just need to like see other people that are out in the world doing the same thing. So.
Yeah, totally. I hit that hardcore as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Like I just would like suck into that zone of like there's no outside world
Yeah,
beyond
you
these 4
really
walls.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you did before you had kids and such.
Really? I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. Like one of those like looking for my purpose, trying to figure it out, trying to see what it was that I don't know, that I just always, I never knew what I wanted to do. I never had that like passion that like, oh, I know that after school this is what I'm going to become. Yeah. I never had that, and so I think that took away like a lot of my confidence too. So that took away confidence as I like searched from thing to thing and getting distracted and like feeling like I was failing just because I was like less interested in the subject. And so as I kept trying different things, in the middle of that is actually when I got pregnant with Boone. And so I think when that happened, it just kind of like I dove everything into that. So into him, I did dental assisting. So I was a dental assistant. I was very much more, I think I was confused between what was going to be more important for me. Was it going to be making more money, or was it going to be sacrificing that to, you know, pursue the passion projects and all the things that I wish I could have done, but then I didn't have the confidence to pursue those certain things.
Sure.
And so I went into the dental industry because I knew it would make money. I knew it would be reliable. I knew that people are always going to have teeth that need to get cleaned or fixed or pulled out or anything. So I knew it was secure.
Yeah.
It kind of like gave me all those things that like socially like we think that we have to have in order like to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I fell into that, and I hated it. I mean, I liked the job. It was, like, kind of fun. I love my favorite part of the job was connecting with people. Like, and I've always noticed that that's been my thing, is as long as I'm connected to somebody, then I'm going to, like, love what I do.
Yeah.
And that was the only part, is, like, I would get really connected to my patients, but I didn't so much like what I saw in a dental office. I didn't really like just a lot of, like, the greediness and kind of how I saw most. I don't know. Anyway, that could be a whole different subject. It wasn't at all. It was very much more reserved. You know, have to cover up all your tattoos. You have to like have everything really nice. You have to have your nails perfect. Have to make sure you're wearing eye makeup, like things like that. That is just. I don't like being told what to do, let alone like how to dress or what I can do to my body or things like that. So that just wasn't my thing. And so when I got pregnant and I had Boone, I knew that I needed to figure out some way to stay at home with him because he was the best baby ever. He was so easy. I never wanted to leave him. Yeah. And then when you have a baby and you're already going to a job that you don't click with, it was just like every day was hell until I got back to him. So I don't know. That's when I found Beachbody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did that kind of change the dynamics for you? Because clearly, you know, starting something new and a new venture and business, there's some like work that you have to put into building that, and then having a young baby at home. Like, tell me about that experience.
It definitely was a lot of work, and I think I just didn't. I underestimated it. I thought that it was going to be something that was, I don't know, like me, and I have a very strong love-hate for not necessarily Beachbody, but just multi-level marketing in general and network marketing. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of talking to people. It's just a lot of building that you have to do, and I had a really hard time between doing that and raising a baby and feeling like I didn't want. When he was a baby, it was okay because they slept all the time, and so it was a lot easier. But as they grew into toddlers and helping them,
no downtime.
There's no downtime. I just really had a hard time with the whole company as a whole, like, or not the whole company, but the whole
process, maybe.
The process of it in general. I had a hard time. At the time, I was a much happier person when I only had one baby, and I was starting a business, and I was happy, and I had so many happy things to share with everybody, and I was so happy that I found a business, and I was able to quit my job because it replaced my income, because I was so happy and thrilled and motivated, and had this like fire in me like I never had. So it was really easy to attract people to me.
Sure.
So in ways that it was hard, it was also really easy because I had a lot of people that I have known or grown to know or met that were probably also in the same spots and were like, I need that same kind of thing going for me. And so it was easy in that sense, but it started to get harder, like the deeper that I got into having more responsibilities, more children, all of those things. It just made it really hard for me to still have that like happiness and fire and drive because my attention was obviously in a lot of other areas. And so it actually really just created a very hard, as I entered seasons of postpartum depression and anxiety and all of that, and also still feeling like I had to maintain this like certain presence on social media all the time. Like, well, if you don't look happy and motivated, nobody's going to like you, nobody's going to want to follow you, nobody's going to be interested in you anymore.
Right.
So constantly having that like tug of having to deal with that, and then knowing what my behind the scenes was, and that
Yeah.
you know, I was starting to really not like, I was disengaging from liking to be at home full time with the kids and run a business. It was building resentment in areas that I didn't want resentment to be. It built a lot of not feeling good enough or worthy or things like that, like a lot of really unhealthy things that we could possibly even feel about ourselves, and a very strong amount of negative self-talk that I really just like had to stop doing it. You know, I had to walk away from it. And so that was definitely a pivotal point.
Yeah. So what would you say was like the final thing that made you decide, okay, I have to step back from this? Was it just like a slow progression, or would you say there was just like a moment that you had?
It was definitely a slow progression. And then once I realized that people that I thought were my real friends, you know, if you're not familiar with network marketing, like it definitely is still a structure of a pyramid, you know, like with anything. Not that it's a pyramid scheme, it's just, it really is a pyramid.
Right. Yeah.
There are people that you're under that they're going to make money off of what you do and your team does, and then it's all just going to build up. And so I felt like I had been fooled a little bit. Like I thought that the people above me were like my friends.
Really
like
vested
I
in
thought,
you,
I thought that they cared and loved and like wanted the best for me. And once I started, you know, kind of vocalizing these things and trying to communicate that the things that I saw in the business that I didn't like, and how I was just so quickly kind of just shut out and like shunned, and very much like, don't listen to her because nobody wants it to catch wind because it's all gonna roll downhill. I don't know if I can cuss on here sometimes, so sometimes I'm like stumbling on my words because I'm like trying to find different words.
Yeah.
But anyways, like shit rolls downhill, and so they like, you know, they don't want it to spread like rapid fire, that all these people are having these same concerns and questions pop up, and things like that just, it was like, oh, these people are not the people that I thought I was running business with. And so it really just kind of had me at that point.
So was this was after you had your second son?
Third.
This was after all three of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that had to have been quite the storm. That's so terrible to feel like your support is just gone.
Yeah.
Like
it was.
You feel like you're a team, and then you're not a team.
Yeah.
Right?
It definitely did. Like, and I feel like to anybody else that would sound kind of silly, but like in that moment it honestly just felt like, you know, people had died. Like, you know, people were completely like just cut off from.
Yeah.
And that was so much like my purpose, and I didn't want to be like a disappointment to people that had been following me. I didn't want to seem like I was phony, because that was my biggest struggle, was trying to put on this fake persona of this happy, like, look at me, look at what this business is helping me with person, when that was like slowly what I was realizing it wasn't for me, and like how I was feeling, I just couldn't be myself with it anymore.
So after you decided to move away from that, what did that look like for you?
Honestly, I just I don't want to jump into a completely different subject, but I feel like I'm leaving such a big part out of it that it's hard to keep going in this direction unless I like backtrack and
well, then take us back.
So that would be like how I said, then that's when my postpartum depression and anxiety and all of that started to kick in, if I go back to like after the second baby.
Yeah.
And then that's when I like really started smoking weed, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's when I was getting the most relief from that. That's when I was starting to find my quality of life and like joy and happiness and less anxiety. Because anyone that suffers from anxiety knows how that's an awful cycle. You're anxious, and then you're mad that you get anxious, and then you're mad that you're mad, and then you're depressed, and then you're just
this
like
vicious cycle that keeps
cycle
feeding.
that you can't get out of. And so I like, it was the first thing that like really sucked me out of that. And I wasn't having any help with like doctors or trying to find any answers or anybody that really, I was breastfeeding him and at the time, and so it felt like it also had to be something that I was secretive of. You know, I did my own research. I tried to find things. I asked doctors about taking like anti-anxiety and depression medication while breastfeeding, and all of them were very hesitant and didn't want to. And so, like, honestly, out of all the studies I found with women who smoke weed in different countries and everywhere, like, it was, if anything, almost beneficial. Like, and I don't want to tell anybody to, like, go smoke weed and breastfeed your baby, but there just wasn't anything that I found compared to the medication, so that's kind of just what I chose to do and kind of keep it hush-hush.
Yeah. But I feel like that adds an element of shame to women, for sure, when they have to hide something that's helping them, you know, be where they want to be, and they're still caring for their kids, but it has this negative light on it, for sure. I don't know if you felt that.
No, it's definitely a stigma, you know. It really is.
Okay, so, and I know, because I went through postpartum with my second daughter, and I mean, I had experienced depression before that, but then to add postpartum depression, it's like a completely different level of depression. I don't know, you can kind of tell me about what it was like for you.
It got bad, like you. Like, I had experienced depression and anxiety, like, mostly for as long as I could remember. But it was also, it was a lot easier to still deal with life, and because I didn't have as many responsibilities, you know. I didn't have additional stress and things to worry me come in. Like I did as an adult or postpartum.
You only have a baby to take care
of. I know, right?
To sustain, to keep alive, to care for, right?
So, I mean, I hit a low point where I had, you know, I was just, like, unworthy and disconnected, and, you know, that's when you get a lot of, like, suicidal ideology, and, like, that definitely came into play. And, again, smoking weed was, like, the only thing that was, like, brought me back to a level to where I could lift my head up and be like, is this what normal people live like? Like, is this real life right now? And, like, just got me out of it. And so that's what helped me out through a lot. And when I quit Beachbody and quit coaching and quit network marketing, I was like, okay, I sat at home. And I just remember staying up by myself one night, and I was, like, out of everything, like, just searching for answers, like, meditating, getting quiet, like, reading all my self-help books that I could, like, just trying to figure out what was going to be my next step. Because aside from only wanting to pursue something that was something I could be passionate about, I also had to figure out what was going to be worth it for me to leave my kids for the first time. Like, that was going to be hard. I was picturing myself at different jobs, and I was like, but would I be happier doing that than being with my kids? And so it was definitely something that I had to be making a giant sacrifice on. And so, honestly, weed was the first thing that popped into my head, and I thought about how it helped me, and I thought about the stigma and the shame and all of that, and how I hated how that was always something that I had to hide. Not even just smoking, but just having those feelings in the first place. I hated that was something that I had to hide, and I hated that if I felt that way, then there's probably a lot of other moms and people out there that did too. And I'm always very much have been a helper. So if there isn't anything that I knew I wanted to do for sure, it's always been about helping people. I've just never known how it's going to be my way to help. Like, how it's going to be my way to connect. And so, I don't know. That was just, I thought about also it's an industry that's booming. Like, I didn't want to get in something. I'm like, if I'm going to pursue my passion and what I'm going to do, then it also needs to make me money too, because now I have 3 kids, and I have to replace the income, because I was making a very good income at the coaching business that I was doing. So I also had to make sure that I was going to help me financially, because I couldn't afford to have it not. You know, most daycare and stuff like that is,
oh my gosh,
ridiculous expensive. So I had to think about a lot.
So moving forward, did you just start applying at anything that was in that realm, or did you, like, think about how you wanted to be involved? Or
I did think about it. It was weird, because I just remember sitting on the couch, and I remember Derek walking in, and I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. Like, I got it figured out. And he was just like, what? And I was like, I'm gonna be in the cannabis industry. Like, I'm gonna figure out a way. Like, whether we grow it, whether I help design labels for edibles, whether I don't know. I was like, I am gonna find a way to, like, get out there and, like, be a mom, because at the time too, I that's was really the big thing. I got on Instagram and I was like, I'm going to try to find like canna moms or women or somebody in the industry that was more representative of how I felt about the plant.
Right.
And so I couldn't really find a whole lot of it.
That's
and I was
not,
like,
yeah.
just because there's nobody else out there already doing it doesn't mean that I can't be the person that actually does
Right.
it, you know? And so that was one thing that coaching really helped me with. So I'd hate to leave it all on a negative side, but coaching helped me in so many ways. It helped me like be confident. It helped me not be confident, but it helped me learn the value of like myself and my own worthiness and what I am capable of. It like taught me that connection is one of the biggest things that we could like possibly have to help with our worthiness and wanting to help and desire to help others. And it really fueled that, and it gave me a voice because I so much had to connect with people. I so much had to do like the Facebook Live and all of those things. I haven't done it in so long, so it's like a little nerve-wracking, but it made me constantly step out of my little bubble that I always like kept myself protected in and kept myself small in. So I'm glad that I did coaching because it like got me out of it enough to be like, okay, now I really can run with whatever I want to do. Like now I have that confidence that I need to do that.
Yeah.
And so then when I decided to do this and I saw like this empty pocket in the industry or that I wanted to be a part of or help fill with the few people that I did see similar, the next day I had a falling out. I had a really hard workout. Like I was like, I'm gonna make this the best damn workout ever. Like I have a few questions lingering in my mind of where I need to go next. I am gonna work out so hard. I remember my house was a disaster, and I'm so anal about wanting to keep it clean all the time. Like I remember that was pissing me off.
I'm glad I'm not the only
like,
one.
No, it makes me so angry. And I remember that making me mad, and I got back from the grocery store with all 3 kids, and I was mad about my business and knowing that I couldn't go back to it, that I didn't want to go back to it. And I was like mad about all these friends that I thought were my friends that weren't my friends. And I was just like, I don't know where I'm going to go next, and I'm really scared if I'm going to like make this tiptoe over here. So I need to do something to like shake it off. And I worked my ass off. I like the best workout ever. And then afterwards I was like, I'm just going to start calling people. I'm just going to start calling people. Like, one thing I've learned is that their resources are everywhere. It's not a lack in intelligence. It's just a lack of like looking at your resources that are available for you. And so I was like, okay, I'll call all the dispensaries that are close by. And I called Green to Go, I think was actually the first one I called.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I remember I called and they're like, well, actually we're hiring. And I called just being like, can I job shadow for free? Can I just like hang out? Can you guys teach me things? And like at the time now that I worked, I'm like, oh my gosh, they probably thought I was so dumb. Like they're like, who is this desperate girl trying to get in here? But the guy was nice enough to tell me that they were hiring. And so I was just like, oh. So I got on and I got the application really fast. And before I got all my kids and I went to my grandma's house, and I remember like I had to use the computer, and the computer was in the living room and walkway and kitchen where everybody was. And this was still at a time when nobody knew that I smoked weed.
Okay.
And so I'm like sitting there like writing this cover letter and everything as people are walking by, and I'm just like, please don't look, please don't ask. They're asking where I was hiring, and I was like, I'm too nervous to tell you. I just made it seem like if I tell you, I'll jinx it. Like I can't tell you right now. I don't want you to know. And so I just kept kind of pushing that along. And I submitted it right away. I couldn't figure out where to submit it to because I suck at technology. And
again, I'm glad I'm not the only one. My goodness.
I'm awful at it. And so I kept having to call back because I kept messing up. And I remember like a lady answering. She was so annoyed with me because I couldn't spell it right. And I was like, I'm definitely not. All this went to waste. I'm definitely not getting this job. I need to call the next place. But then I submitted it, and I got a call back on Easter. And that was for an interview. And then that's when I actually, like, even though I showed up at the wrong place, I really went into it not knowing anything about cannabis. Like, I was still pretty new to smoking, but I just knew how it helped me. I mean, I smoked really, like, after high school a bunch with my friends, typically, but like, I was still not that knowledgeable. So the day before my interview even, I was just sitting on the couch, and I was like trying to read up different things about strains and the different kinds and everything that had to do with it. And I was so overwhelmed by this information and how I completely had underestimated everything that went into this, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, they're gonna ask me questions, and I'll know nothing. And Derek's like, they're not possibly gonna know. Like, they're not gonna give you pop quiz. They're not gonna drill you. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, they're right. Like, they did say, like, they were looking for customer service skills, and I have customer service skills.
Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna lead with that. Lead with my strong suit. Yeah.
Exactly. And I get there after not at the wrong building. They wave me down to the right building out in the street, and I'm like walking in circles on my phone. Mm-hmm. They wave me in to the real place, and it turns out it's a group interview, and so there's all these other people that are already waiting for me to like get there. It has my name, and it was awful. And there's a piece of paper, and I turn it over, and it was a pop quiz.
Oh no. Then you're just like, what?
Yeah, I didn't even know how to pronounce half the things on there. I had spent a lot of the morning before remembering that there's an indica, a hybrid, and a sativa, and what that even meant. Like, I knew nothing. And it also made me realize that the weed that I was getting, I was just like, this is interesting. Like, I always thought, like, oh, this is this amazing weed, and then I look up what pictures of other weed looks
really
like too,
pretty.
and I was like, wow, there's so much potential here.
Right. So how did you fumble your way through this pop quiz? That
Customer service skills. I did. At the time, there's also like multiple people interviewing us. It was like a panel. It was.
Oh, that's intimidating.
Oh my God. This was my interview shirt, honestly.
Was it?
Yes. I just.
Nice.
I remember like being so glad it didn't have armpits in it, because I was awful.
Got me started off with a pop quiz.
Yeah.
No.
But that is where also coaching came in, and it like gave me that confidence. I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
I can lead with it. I can do it. And so I just led with, and I was just honest. Like, the only thing I can ever be is honest, and I was just like straight up with him. I was like, honestly, I don't know anything. On this quiz I wrote, that's not the part that I'm passionate about right now. Like, right now I'm passionate about getting in this industry. I'm passionate about helping others with it. I'm passionate about, taking the stigma off of it. I'm passionate about helping other moms and connecting with them, because if they're at home alone with a bunch of babies on their hips and feeling alone, like there's no one else out there, like I want to connect with them and let them feel heard. Like, those were all the things that I had about it. I was like, I don't know the difference in all these strains right now. And so I think just being honest with them about that, like, they're like, the rest will come. The rest you will learn on the job.
Yeah. So then you got hired?
I got hired.
Second interview? Just straight in? Okay, so second interview, right on. And so, because I remember seeing your post on Facebook, and I was like, what? This is like so out of left field. I didn't even know that she was interested in this. Like,
it was, because I kept it all just hush hush forever.
Yeah.
Especially just, I don't know. I think a lot of the way I was viewed, even like growing up, I was always like more of the innocent seeming one, or my parents were pretty strict. I didn't like go out to parties. I didn't go drink. I didn't do any of those things. Yeah. So it's also something that I knew in the first place people would be like, what? And so like I don't want to have to explain myself to anybody. Sure. It's like, dude, I just want to feel better. Like, leave me alone and don't judge what I'm doing to figure that out right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Because like you said, you're in this cycle of feeling like you're having to perpetuate a fake wall on social media, and then to be able to just say, hey, I got hired here, and then just watch everything unfold from there. Like, what was that like for you?
Honestly, I kind of just ghosted for a while.
Really?
I felt bad about it, and I felt bad about just like being there as a constant for people, and then just like pulling away with really no explanation. But a part of me was like, this is like my truth, like, and I have to own it. And all these other people that I thought really cared about me that ended up not caring about me, like, that didn't matter. Like, I can also just like, recluse for a little bit and figure myself out and like get my head back on it.
That is okay to do.
And like, I've also been like looking at the world through like these like almost tainted eyes of having to like look on the positive side of everything, be bright and cheery and whatever. And I was like, no, like, these are some feelings I need to let myself feel right now. Like, I need to do some healing from this. I needed the time. I couldn't explain anything to anybody, because I couldn't even explain it to myself.
Totally.
And I was just, it pulled me away from it completely.
Yeah, I kind of experienced that because before my Facebook page was Unraveling with Rayne, it was just rainbow. And like I was kind of at a crossroads very similarly, and I was like, what am I doing? Where am I going with this? You know, like, so I thought about all the things that I like to do, and I just started to just like put out, you know, art and poetry and doodling and thoughts and like random things, and I was like, this is all gonna come together and be something. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm just gonna like keep doing
like, let
it.
the world see you as you, and like let them take it for what they want to, and if not, cool, like, you know.
Yeah, so I think that going about it that way, you don't have to always be, you know, that upbeat, positive shell that, you know, you're perpetuating to everybody else, which I don't know how you felt about that, but I know for me it was terrifying at first. Like, I lost sleep. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I am like the most honest and true and exposed I have ever been to not just people around me, but now everyone on the internet as well. Like, just looking for those connections with people that were like that also. You know, so I struggled with it a lot in the beginning. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, it definitely was. I just didn't want to come off like in a certain way that it was all fake to begin with, or that it wasn't really what it was, because I mean it still was very much, but I was like, I couldn't take always feeling like I had to put on a show every day or not be me.
So after, you know, you've switched and you've gone in this different direction with your career, and how did that affect things like with your personal journey after switching?
After switching, I felt like I completely boycotted working out. I also just completely, like, at least the thing with coaching also, it gave me that I had to take care of myself. I had to be the product. I had to maintain this body image, and I had to eat the meals, and I had to, like, uphold this presence and do all of the things because I didn't want to be phony, like I said. So, like, I was really, like, I was walking the walk and talking the talk. Like, I was doing it all. And when I decided I was done, I was just like, bye. Like, you know, I kind of went on this other trail, which was also good because it, you know, it let me, like, love myself, like, you know, at different shapes and sizes, and not put my worthiness into whether or not I did my workout or not, or whether or not I deserve to eat this, like, ice cream at the end of every night, and then will I feel guilty about it because then I won't have, like, this perfect before and after picture to show everybody, or feel like I have to do a double the next day. Like, there was also some, like, unhealthy things that I was so happy to step away from that I just loved it. Like, I loved it. I ate so much and just kind of, I just fell off of working out. Like, but there was a kick side of that, which is what I've, like, most recently had to go through, was that when I fell off of not taking care of myself in those ways, that all of those things that was also helping me with, like, mental health and stuff like that, it went crazy. And also, like, I have an autoimmune disease, so with my thyroid and everything, and so when I don't eat healthy or do those things to take care of myself, it makes that really bad, which also has a big effect on my mental health. And so I recently, like, finally 6 months later, felt the backlash of not, you know, exercising and eating good and all of those things. So
I think that when we find a place where we're really excited and feel like we're headed in the right direction with our journey and what we're accomplishing and things like that, and we, like you said, we go into those moments of, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, do what I want. I'm not gonna, you know, force myself to work out or to, like, hyper focus on my meals. And like you said, when you come to that, like, place of, like, oh, it's all catching up with me now, I feel like when we recognize that, we want to fix it, like, now, because we're on such a high with where we're going in our journey, like, emotionally, mentally, like, we're just like, oh yeah, that stuff, I should probably get back to that
that's
stuff.
Still important too. Like, I mean, not that I'm already juggling, like, 5 balls up in the air right now, but, like, let me add a few more because it's crucial.
Right. So tell me what it's been like working in this industry and doing your job and all of the things. I'm so excited to know. Like, I'm like, what is this life like?
Oh my God. I think maybe 3 times a week, I'm like, we need a reality TV show. Like, Screw Jersey Shore, we'd put him out of the water. It's just, it's funny. Like, and I don't know, too. There are a couple of people at work that say I'm so much like Piper on Orange is the New Black.
Oh, really?
Because she's kind of entering this world of prison that is so far out of her element.
Okay,
you know, that
right.
she's just like, and what is this? And like, she's trying so hard, but she's just so far off.
Oh, man.
And, like, that definitely, I feel like, is me in this industry, like, as I walk in. And it was crazy, you know, like, I started, and I was still breastfeeding. I was still, like, Otis was only 4 months old. I had originally, I only planned on working the job part-time. Like, that's all I was looking for, part-time work. I couldn't bear to be away from my kids instantly that much. But the job came, like, initially, at first it came with great benefits. It came with insurance. It came with things that my kids didn't have, like, we didn't have before. So I was just like, okay, like, that's just what I'm gonna have to do.
Yeah.
So I did that because I didn't want to pass up the opportunity.
No.
Especially here where we are, it's not like Seattle or other places where shops are popping up everywhere. Like, it's very reserved.
For sure.
And so I didn't want to pass up the opportunity and always wonder what if. And so I went for it, and then so I was already, like, new, and then jumping into full-time at first, and still breastfeeding, and being really the only one at the time that I knew, at least. I knew there are some other moms that had young children and had gone through something similar, but, like, nobody really, like, doing the same thing kind of with me at the same time.
Yeah.
And I started on a night shift because I wanted to be able to be with my kids as much as I could. So I worked at nights, and I was like, sleep will be my sacrifice because I'm already used to that, I guess. Worst choice ever.
I was gonna say, that's
gosh,
never fun.
that caught up so fast again. Like, cue other worst cycle of my mental health.
Sleep deprivation is, in a league of its own.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so I did that for a little bit, and it was awful, just, like, being so engorged at work and, like, being around people you didn't know yet or were comfortable around yet to be like, dude, this is happening right now. I don't know what to do. There wasn't, the way it's set up, too, like, it's just so strict in that area. So it was originally an old house that was built in. And so, like, it was, I mean, the front was definitely, like, more storefront, but when you entered, like, the back break room type, it's just, like, an old bathroom and an old toilet and all those things, and that was really the only place I could, like, pump or, like, pump in my car, and it was just, like, trying to, you know, do breaks and extra breaks, and all of these different things. It was just crazy in a whirlwind, and I just remember constantly being like, am I doing the right thing right now? Like, is this really the right thing? Like, I would just, it was so weird to love something and be so frustrated, like, not frustrated, but overwhelmed by it at the same time, that I was just, like, was constantly, like, the fact that I kept questioning it kept reassuring me that I definitely was in the right place, you know, because I was like, I am so far out of my comfort zone right now, I don't even see it. This is the scariest thing I've ever done, but, like, if there's anything I've learned, like, doing the scary things is going to be, like, the most rewarding thing, and so I was just, like, so scared, but it was, like, made me so excited, because I was like, this is the thing then, like, if I'm this scared, this is the thing.
Right. I think that that's so true. So true. Anytime that we feel like we're absolutely terrified, we're probably onto something. Yeah. And if we're not, then we probably should be looking into something.
Yeah.
You
like,
know?
I think I have a strange addiction to being terrified.
Yeah.
Like, I'm either, if I'm feeling safe and secure, I'm like, I better change this up somehow.
Yeah. Well, that's when we're growing, I think. I think for sure. And I mean, just thinking about that scenario though, like, breastfeeding in and of itself is, like,
hard,
crazy. It's like a full-time job, stressful at times. And I think that, like, from my own experience, like, with my first child, I felt like it was just going to be, like, a natural thing. Like, this is what babies do, and this is what moms do, and it's just going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. And that's not what happened. Like, and I feel like, again, there's another arena where moms are, like, shamed and, like, looked down on if they feel like they can't do it, like, because it's a huge commitment. Like, think about how much time you sit and breastfeed especially once you have more than one kid, then you're thinking, how am I gonna sit and breastfeed?
Yeah. You
Like,
can't.
there's
It's
no
like
way.
on the go.
Yeah.
And then my kids are all like almost 10 pounds. Otis was like an ounce away from being 10 pounds. So to try and walk to breastfeed
One
and
arm.
like pour cereal and help a kid wipe his butt and
Right.
stuff like that was just like,
Either you're gonna have biceps of
oh my
steel.
God. No, my back was just
Yeah.
always out.
Oh man. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, thinking about you doing that at that time, and then in a new job, and then in a new environment that you never worked in before, learning new things,
Yeah.
and like that must have been so exciting, but so like nerve-wracking. Like
yeah.
that is such
Yeah.
a crazy space to be in.
Yes, it
Yeah.
definitely was. I think there was a lot of, in the middle of all of that, it was like I kind of almost lost who I was for like a half a second. Like I
Yeah.
almost was just like, who is this person that I'm having to be full time, because it was a
Mhm.
full time job,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I was used to being full time mom and caretaker and all of these
Mhm.
things, and like now I'm full time. You know, the traffic through there is amazing. It is constantly full. Like you're constantly talking to a customer. You're constantly hitting the number, calling your next customer, beating the number. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like it wasn't the job where I was like, oh yeah, you're just gonna like sit back and
Come
you know,
on
like
in.
it wasn't
Yeah.
anything like I had really imagined it. And so like having that constant interaction with people really like just threw me off too. You know, I went from being stay-at-home mom and talking about ABCs and what different animals are and you know, things like that, and how to use the toilet properly, and going from little small talk like that to then being thrown back into adult conversation at a constant is crazy.
I
It
bet.
still blows my mind a little bit.
Really?
Just the amount of the lack in confidence that I would hear myself talking. Like even now, like, you know, I say a lot. Like I would hear myself say that. I doubt myself a lot. Like
Yeah.
I would stumble on words so much more in the beginning, and I was like, wow, I'm like
I'm out
relearning
of
how
adult
to
talk
talk to
practice.
people
Yeah.
like constantly, let alone when you're exhausted and it's 10 at night and you've said the same thing over and over and over again. Like it was a lot. It messed with my head a little bit. I think like it got to me to where I was just like, you know, it just flipped so fast.
Yeah.
That my head was like still back here, but I was over here doing all of these things, and I'm just like, what is going on?
Yeah. So did you eventually switch to days then?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I mean, I even had like such a brief stint and got in such a weird like psychosis that I ended up going to like a crisis center, and I stayed in like an overnight place because I was so just like at a low point.
Yeah.
To where I was so overwhelmed and stressed that I felt like I was being a monster to everyone that I was around, that I was just like, I need to get away. I need to be away.
Yeah.
I can't be here right now.
Right.
And so I like took a week off of work, and then close to that time is later when I got moved to days, and it like all came right back around, and it was like perfect because I got off at 4. I got to see my babies. I like got that time with them. It was still summer, so I'd come home and we'd still go to the park and barbecue and like do all kinds of stuff. So it definitely like gave me back that like I'm so excited feeling again.
Just one little tweak. It was all right back on track.
Sleep.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. So that's so cool. So tell me a little bit more about like what it's like to be a bud tender. Like it's clearly fast paced.
Super fast paced.
Yeah.
It's really cool to connect with people. Like, and that too is another thing that, you know, I thought just being a bed tender, I was like, oh, well, I don't know if I'll really be able to like help people, but it'll be cool to like learn about everything and you know, stuff like that. I didn't really know like where I would still go from it. But being a bed tender, it's amazing because of the connection that you have with people. And I've always been somebody that like I just thrive off of connection, which is typical because like all of us do. We're human.
So we're meant to do.
We're a pack
think.
animal. Like we're supposed to connect to people.
Yeah.
And so it really like brought that back to me, like that purpose back. Of feeling connected to people, of helping people. You really do. Like that's like totally where I could get emotional doing it, because there are so many people that you get that like that you know you're helping, or people like mostly cancer patients that come in, or small children for parents coming in to make their medical cards because you know it's the only thing that can stop their seizures, or you know, just giving people a quality of life. And it's sad. It's sad because it's so taboo still here, over here. People think you live in Washington or whatever. It's very much not that way. You know, there's a ban on it. There's a reason why we're the only ones out there that do it. There's a reason we're so packed, so that everybody has to funnel through us.
Yeah.
And it's sad because it makes it, we sell out of things really fast. We, you know, that's a lot of medicine for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of it is recreational, but there are specific, you know, medical cases that we constantly have to stay up on. And with everybody kind of coming through the same place, it's hard because you see a lot of just like what you wish you could do to change. There's so many laws and rules and restrictions just here specifically that makes it hard to overcome.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that as well. And there are so many things that are allowed that cause way more harm than good at times, and it frustrates me sometimes that something that really has zero or little to no side effects, or, you know, what we've seen as far as long-term, you know, downsides, that is so hard to get a hold of. Like you said, especially for medical patients. So I'm sure that it's really rewarding to be able to be that person that gets them that when you can. Yeah. That's really cool.
I definitely do. I like it. I feel like it's honestly taught me more than any amount of school that I've done. Like, you know, I floated through like college, like off and on, trying to figure things out. And honestly, I think back and I'm like, just being a bud tender has taught me so much more, like, about life in general and about like people in general and having respect for one another, and the amount of different people I see because everybody has to come through that store. It blows my mind. Just like, I don't know, the lack of maybe empathy or compassion or all those things, or just like how much more closed-minded I was until I started interacting with such a bigger, broad spectrum of people. And it opened my eyes, like, on the world, like, entirely as a whole. I think it makes me want to, like, root for everybody, stand up for everybody, like, help everybody, because you just see and connect to so many people. You know, like, we have so many members of, like, the homeless community that you know, have to come through us, and like, they're doing it legally, they're paying their taxes, they're they're getting a line like everybody else, they're walking to our store. Like, I'll pass the same person on my way to work, like, every single day. Like, it's, you know, you build that, like, kind of like relationship with that person. And I don't know, so it's just like, it's awesome because those are things that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for working there. But people think like it's just pot, but it's not.
Well, I admire your bravery so much, because I look at you and I see what you're doing and what you're putting out there, and I'm just like, how brave is that, you know, to just be that and to put out what you feel is going to aid in connection and growth, and that's so cool. So cool. Yeah. But you're also brave in many other ways too that I've noticed. So I have to say that as you kind of documented your pregnancies online and you talk about those things and giving birth to your kids and those experiences, and I loved how, like, real you were about it. Like, you didn't, you know, hide behind the, oh, I'm mommy now and everything is great and I'm perfect and my kids are perfect and we live in this little perfect house. And, you know, like, I love how raw you were about it. And if you don't mind me asking, like, I want to kind of know your experience as far as your home birth went, because I feel like that's another thing that I'm kind of, like, passionate about, and I've noticed in your content that you seem to be passionate about as well, as far as, like, that whole process, you know, in hospital, not in hospital, and always having the choice instead of feeling forced into one particular avenue, and all of the different options there are out there to women who are, you know, having babies and stuff. So, maybe share some of that with us.
Gosh.
Let me just throw 10 questions at you at once.
I mean, honestly, it all started with Boone.
Yeah.
I was so scared. Before Boone, I had a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got pregnant with Boone, I was definitely like, what's wrong? What is that move? What is going on? What is this? Google, like everything. I was so anxious because I was so afraid of losing it again, you know, because I was constantly, what was wrong with my body the first time?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to do it this time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and trying to figure it out. And so I was, you know, I felt like a lot of the doctors, they use a lot of like scare tactics and stuff. And so for somebody going in already anxious and scared, I was very like, okay, sign off, write off. Like,
we'll do this test and that scan and measure this and measure that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Boone's birth was a C-section because the doctor told me, oh, he's too big. You'll never be able to. Da, da, da. Like, didn't even let me try and just kind of really scared. I was past my due date. Really scared me past it. And so I was just like, okay, I like signed off to do the C-section and I did it, and it was just weird. Like I watched the TLC that whatever baby one every morning. I used to watch it. And I'd always watch
it's like a baby story or
something.
Yeah,
baby story. And I'd watch the moms have these babies, and it was like this like moment, and they put the baby on their chest, and they were just like, oh my God. And like he was a C-section, so I didn't like. I was like, oh, like I saw him, but I couldn't really hold him. And then like all from the drugs and the epidural wearing off and all of that, like I still don't really remember like when I finally did get to hold him. Like the breastfeeding was off because I said I didn't want him to have a bottle. I wanted to breastfeed him, and they gave him a bottle, so he like wasn't hungry, so he didn't want to latch. So then he never really learned how, and so it was just like a fight. So he was robbed of that.
Yeah.
Just so many like little things that I was just like, you know what, this isn't that like, oh, look at this beautiful bond all of a sudden that we're gonna have. Like I didn't feel that, and so I felt very bad about myself as a mother and like my skills of like having that motherhood instinct, because I was like, I didn't feel that initially. Why don't I feel like this way? Why don't I, you know, because I didn't have that same, you know, that same natural chemical reaction that your body does.
Yeah, you're supposed to
go through all of that. And so I just, you know, it went into like my whole motherhood and being like, wow, I already suck at this. Like, you know, I already robbed us of this. Like, how am I going to do this? You know, as he got older and we connected and stuff like that, it definitely like it changed. And I always like loved him overwhelmingly from the start. But it wasn't like, I was like, damn, that wasn't the birth. That wasn't the experience that I thought this was going to be. And then I realized the lack in help with breastfeeding, the lack in just knowledge, the lack of so many things that I had questions on that nobody could ever answer, that it was almost more so like, why are you asking? You're being paranoid, instead of just encouraging me or like being happy that I wanted to do these things for my child.
I feel that a lot from medical professionals or doctors in general, a lot, as far as like, well, why are you even asking questions? I'm going to tell you everything, and then you just have to do
roll the eyes because like, look at this mom who's just being paranoid and Googling things. Totally discredits you. So when I got pregnant the second time, I was just like, I want to do this different. And I went to my doctor and I was at like 30 weeks and I was like, I want to do this naturally. Like, I want a VBAC. I don't want to have him originally with Boone. I wanted to do it naturally, and that's when he scared me into having the C-section. He didn't even want me to have natural childbirth.
I hear that they discourage you after having a C-section to do. Okay.
In some places, it's against the law.
Really? Wow.
For the fear that you'll rupture, but really, it could be more of a harm to do a second, you know, repeat cesareans over and over and over again. But yeah, so it was very taboo when I was 30 weeks, and I was like, I still want to do this. I want to like try this time for reals this time. And he just laughed at me, and he's like, we'll see what you say in 10 weeks. And I was just like so offended and just like so like.
It doesn't help that you're full of emotions and hormones at that time. And
just like also just feeling totally like undercut and just like not heard and not like you matter at all. It's like, I really am just a paycheck to you. And then maybe I had a friend, I don't remember, had The Business of Being Born had sent me the link on that through YouTube. And have you ever watched that? Yeah. So when I watched that, I was just like...
That's what spurred my natural birth with my last child.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Mind blown.
Right?
It was so empowering, and I think that that's really when I was just like, why am I not more proud to be a freak?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say a fucking female, a freaking female. Like, why am I not more proud of that? Like, why am I not more excited? Like, I just watching all those moms, like, on the documentary, like, do it. I was just like, what? I can do it. I can do it. And it just, like, snowballed into this, like, endless rabbit hole searches on Google and all these different things I could find on, like, you know, different stories of different moms and big babies and all of that.
Yeah, after I watched that documentary, like, I seriously looked up every single, like, breathing technique, like, mental, like, mind frame technique that I could use to, like, do a natural birth, because I was like, I am doing that.
Yeah.
Like, that is the experience that I want. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to feel like, why am I letting a doctor rob me of that experience? And the photographer at Derek and I's wedding, since I had been before we got married, the photographer at our wedding had let me know that she was also a doula. And so I remembered that, and I messaged her, and she was the one that knew midwife, who she swore by, who I then contacted, who I contacted the same day. Poor Derek, he deserves a lot, because I really just throw things at him. And I remember sitting there and be like, so I told my doctor I'm never going to see him again, and I watched this documentary, and now I'm going to have the baby at home, and I just met this midwife, and I already signed up on the contract, so...
I swear Derek and Sean could probably tell war stories of the things that we just randomly...
Like, bless him for always just going with the flow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, that was like how quickly that turned around. Very impulsive, very responsible.
Yeah, this is what we're doing. Okay, go.
I thought very hard, approximately 2 hours, about what we're gonna do next.
Sometimes that's all you need is 2 hours. No.
The baby napped. I thought to myself, hadn't done it in a while. I'm a genius still. This is what we're doing.
Go. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I just decided to go for it. I think because my midwife had so much confidence when she came in. She happened to be in town. She was actually from Oregon. And she happened to be in town, and she just came in, and it was just like Mary Poppins of the natural, holistic, crunchy mom world, and just like threw her stuff on the couch and was like, let's measure you. Oh yes, you look great. And just like gave me so much care that I'd never received from a doctor ever. Yeah. And I was just like, whoa, like, this is exactly like what I've been wanting. Yeah. And I was just like, yes, I was so excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. She just empowered me, I guess, you know, like she was just made me feel like I can do it. Like when I asked her questions, I was like, so you might be like 9 pounds. She was like, it's okay. I was
You're ready for that. Oh, we shouldn't do that response. Yeah.
Like, he might be breech. She's like, I'll flip him. Like just so like quick. And I was just like, oh, I got this.
Yeah. So what was that experience like? Like I just can't even imagine, because I still had Bjorn in the hospital. Obviously, I didn't do it at home because I was prone to premature births. All my kids were at least 8 weeks early. So I definitely knew that I was going to have him in a hospital. But I was so fascinated by this, you know, in-home, like, water birth experience that, like, I always wished that I could have had the opportunity to do. And when I saw that you had done it, I was like, oh, yeah, go her, she did it, you know, like.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I don't know, Rayne. That was crazy. I am the person who one time in high school got so excited about my new pair of tennis shoes that had come in the mail that I caught on my lunch break. I jumped up and down, rolled my ankle, and cried and didn't walk for like 2 hours. Like, that's how bad I am with pain.
Yeah.
And when it came to that, I was just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I don't know, why am I not in a hospital? Put me in a hospital, put this needle in my back. Like, I mean, it was cool. I was so excited, but it definitely got to that point where I was like, what did I do?
I guess I'm curious if it was different because of the environment, or, like I said, the aspect of the water birth aspect. Because, like, when I had Bjorn, it was, like I said, in the hospital. You're still on the bed. You're still in the, you know, this is the position we need you to be in to catch this baby, right? And so, like, it was, like, blinding pain. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pain that you can't even.
Did you feel? I remember thinking in my head, there's no way somebody could feel this much pain and still live.
Yeah.
There's no way.
There was a point where I thought I was going to die. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, there's no coming back from this amount of pain.
Yeah,
like,
I literally thought, like, I wanted to be put out of my
Yeah.
misery.
Okay, so the water birth didn't affect that.
It did.
Okay.
It did. Okay. I did really good as long as I was in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And funny story, the hose wouldn't hook up. Or, no. The air pump wouldn't blow up the thing. The big
Yeah.
humongous bathtub.
Yeah.
Pool.
Oh, no.
The batteries were not on the air pump, and Derek had to blow that thing in his mouth.
No.
Yeah, that was. I just remember, like, and through
He's a
contractions,
trooper.
I was like, oh, poor guy. Like, I hope he doesn't pass out because I really
Right,
need him
need you
right
to do
now.
that.
Like, goddamn, please make it through this because I need you.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't in that water,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way. That
Yeah.
water helped so much.
Did it?
I would have to get out of the water to, like, go to the bathroom or
Sure,
if she wanted
sure.
to check me. And I remember being in that water. I was like, I'll go here.
Yeah.
Do not get me out of this water. Like, do not check me. Don't do anything. I do
Right.
not want to. As soon as I did, it felt like all the pain hit me. But being in
Yeah.
the water,
Oh.
totally.
And
took it
having them check you when you're, like, in that much pain is, like, takes it to another
It's
level that you
hell.
didn't realize
It's
that you could go
hell.
to.
It's,
And, like, I just remember I picked a spot on the ceiling, and I did not look away from that spot until I absolutely had to, until I was actually, like, pushing him out, because I was like, if I look away from this spot,
yeah.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's it. So it's cool that, you know, that environment kind of brought that down, though.
Yeah. It definitely helped it.
That's so cool.
It's just yeah, they were just bringing over. We had this, like, little thing to keep it warm, but then we just, like, it kept getting in the way, so they just kept bringing over, like, these big old pots of, like, boiling water and throwing them in the tub and,
Yeah.
like, swirling it around.
Oh.
I also just remember being completely open to everybody. Like, I used to be, I feel like that's why I'm just not as modest as I
Right.
was before childbirth.
Yeah.
Before childbirth, I was definitely, like, very button up.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of that, I was just like, hey, like, just laying there
If you
floating.
don't want to
like,
see, look away, man,
yeah,
because
like,
that's where it
go,
is.
Just
Yeah.
get out of here. Like, I did not care at all. I had birth photographer,
Mhm.
and it was the same lady that was my doula.
Mhm.
And I remember when she sent them back to me, I was like, I didn't know you were taking pictures down there. I did not know.
I don't think we realize anything other than, like, what's happening right
No.
here.
And
you
I,
know?
like, did it on Derek, so
Yeah.
I had to use him to push me because there was, like, a little seat in there, but it was a blow-up seat, so it was flimsy.
Oh, yeah.
And he got in there so I could push off of his legs and,
yeah.
like, squat, because my body took over, so I just, like,
Yeah.
hunkered over.
Mhm.
But I remember, like, a few weeks afterwards, I was like, at least I didn't poop on you. And, like, I slapped his arm. He's like, no, you totally did. And I was just like, no,
Like,
I didn't.
wow.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, I would have, no, I didn't. And he's like, no, you did. Annalise fished it out with a Ziploc bag when you weren't paying attention.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was just like, oh yeah.
It happens.
Stories.
Such is the world of giving birth.
Yeah.
All the stuff, all
Mhm.
the things.
Mhm.
And I think that definitely plays into that aspect of no longer really being, you know, withdrawn as far as that
Yeah.
goes, because all the fluids and all the things are just all exposed.
Yeah,
And
nothing
there
else
it is.
matters.
Yeah. And then you transition to breastfeeding where you've got a boob out all the
all
time.
the time, and you're just like, you're answering the door,
Yep,
and you're
hey,
like,
oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
You didn't
Yeah.
realize. I caught myself at Hop Jacks. It was Derek and I's first outing with Otis, so that's by the time I finally got to, like, my third time breastfeeding and just so not even aware or phased by boobs anymore.
Right.
That I forgot to put my shirt up, so he wasn't even breastfeeding anymore, and I was just sitting there, like, eating my food.
The
And
boob hanging out.
we were kind of sitting at the back because the lady knew I was breastfeeding, so she's like, do you want me to tuck you back? I was like, please. Like,
yeah.
I don't mind breastfeeding in public, but I don't
Sure.
like other people's,
Yeah.
like, opinions or looks, and I'd rather just do without sometimes.
Right.
So she put me in the back, and the cook came out to go to the bathroom, and I remember him doing, like, a take, and I was like, why are you looking at me like that? And I was just like, oh, because my whole boob is out.
Oh, wow. That answers that question. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into a few of those moments. I think I
Mhm.
had a pretty good, you know, boobage shot in the mall one time.
Yeah. I think it's good though. Like,
yeah.
the only reason why I didn't really care a whole lot is because I remember walking into Winco and there was a mom in between the double doors, and you could tell she was so frustrated, and her baby was crying, and she was just like, she didn't know where the rest of her family had gone, and I watched the defeat over her face and her just fling it out in the middle and just like look at everyone else like, say something, I dare you.
Right?
And I was like, yeah, that's
you
right.
Hit those moments, you're just like, I don't care. You guys can either listen to this baby scream or I'm gonna feed him, and we're all gonna be good. You might catch a boob shot, but that's okay.
I took Nash to Nashville like when he was 2 months old. Yeah. On like a Southwest flight, so I was like this with everybody, and I was in the middle seat on the worst part of the flight. I remember just giving up and being like, dude, I don't care, like, because you had to breastfeed the whole time. Yeah. And I'm just like, it's just happening. Yeah. Of course, I was sitting next to a little kid too, who was like, "What are you doing, mommy? What's that? What's that?"
That's funny. Oh man, you know, the funny thing about that is, you know, having 2 girls and they play dolls and stuff, and so like, instead of whipping out like a bottle or something, they'll just like walk around with it up to their chest, you know. And some people are like, "Huh, that's weird," and other people are like, "Okay,
that's right." Like, yeah.
So I think it's kind of important though for them to know that, you know, there's options. It doesn't always go one way or the other. And if one way doesn't work out, there will always be a backup plan.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
it doesn't make you any less, because I felt that when I only breastfed him for a month, and it was awful because he didn't know how to, so his latch and everything was awful. And I remember all that shame I felt by not breastfeeding, and it was shame that people weren't even putting on me, but that I subconsciously was like, oh, they probably think that I am not doing the right things, even though they probably were just like, good for her doing what she needs to do. But
well, I definitely ran into the poor latch and everything having premature babies. And we even tried a technique where like you syringe, like you've got the syringe tube. Have you seen that? And you set it next to them, so that way they're still getting milk whether they're actually like really latched or not, so they still associate the two. And I remember trying that for so long with Kyra, my oldest, just because I wanted her to breastfeed so bad. Like I was like, come on, we got this. And so of course there's not just the added time of like waking up to feed your baby, but then you gotta like get the syringe thing all figured out at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh, we're doing this, you know. And so like I remember just wanting that so bad, and doing everything, and how defeated I felt the first time I had to give her a bottle. Like I remember that day, like that moment where I felt like the biggest failure ever.
So sad.
I was just like, I have to give her a bottle, you know, like, so
much pressure we put on ourselves to like be this most perfect version of ourselves for our kids. And then like at the same time we gotta teach them that it's okay to be human. Like that's been like my biggest thing lately. I'm like, dude, I have flaws, and my kids are seeing my flaws, but like we're talking through them, you know. I'm like, I'm sorry you saw mommy be upset. Like people get upset sometimes, and I'm trying to communicate better, or this is what we're trying to do, or you know what I mean. It's crazy how like perfect we even start out. Like for our kids, we gotta be like this perfect, give them everything.
And you know, the funny thing about that is the more I kind of think about it, and obviously the older my kids get, like I think as long as I keep an open line of communication, and we're real, and we talk to each other, and we obviously you give them language that they can understand at whatever age they're at, but as long as we're talking, it's going to be okay. Because we're going to better understand each other, and it's not going to be like this secretive thing, or that happened and then we never talked about it, or this happened and we never talked about it, you know.
As long as you're connected.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that people have this weird concept that because they're kids, like the connection, like they're just like, oh, you're not going to get it, so
why bother trying to explain this to you?
Right.
Instead of taking the time to explain it, and they'd get it a whole lot quicker, and things could go a whole lot smoother if you just communicated with them.
Right, yeah. I've noticed that with Ashley, my middle child. She has some medical things going on, and I think that's when I really honed in on that concept of, okay, we have to talk. We have to we need to verbalize with each other, because otherwise things are going to get lost in the mix, and there's going to be a whole lot of confusion, and you know, your emotions are still going to be all over the place because you don't understand, and we don't understand, and you're frustrated, and we're frustrated, and the doctors are frustrated, and nobody understands, you know. So
there's no clarity frustration.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know why we assume, especially, I don't know, that's how it was with my first, is like you were talking about that, like, everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know why we assume that at first.
I think we also get hard on our parents.
Yeah,
like,
probably.
we see what our parents did or didn't do when we were kids, so we so quickly want to fix it and, like, be a better version for our kids, so that way when they're older, they can't come back and be like, I wish you didn't do this or do that, which they're going to regardless.
Right.
So I think that we put that kind of pressure on us, like, from the get-go, you know? Like, or even, like, growing up thinking, like, I wonder what kind of mom I'm going to be, or when I'm a mom, I'm going to do this, and then if we don't do that, we're like, everything I thought of myself is not the truth, you know?
Yeah,
like,
another, you know, who am I moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Like, completely forgetting that we're always evolving, and it's always changing, and we're always rewiring, and it's, especially with kids. Like, there's a book I've been so into lately, and it's just, like, taking things more with the whole brain approach, and just, you know, having that communication, like, connecting with your kids first before getting upset, and taking the drama out of, like, parenting, you know, the bad drama, at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's good drama, like, when they pee on things they're not supposed to, or, you know, stuff like that, but, well, I mean, I guess if you have the two girls. Is your oldest boy old enough yet to, like, start?
He's potty training now.
Okay.
And it's, it's different.
I have nothing to compare it to, so
I don't really know how, okay, so you're going to have to tell me how this works, because, like, you know the little potty chairs you get, and they have the little thing in the front that's supposed to guard things? Like, I don't feel like that. Because he likes to, like, recline.
Yeah, likes
and I'm
to
like,
chill
you gotta
out.
sit forward, buddy. Like, potty training boys is way different.
There's aim that's involved.
Right? I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I don't
it's
have one of those.
Sport.
So, like, we're just gonna learn together, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, he's potty training. He's, boys are boys. My goodness. As you know, having 3 of them. What is that like, having 3 boys in the house?
I just don't know any different.
I guess
it's always
true.
chaos.
Yeah.
It's always loud. It's always loud. But, like, tonight, they went to go stay with my mom, so I could, like, come here for this. I'm going to work tomorrow. So I was like, how about they have a sleepover? Because they love going over there. And so they'll be over there, and I'm excited because there are a couple projects at home that I'm like, cool, I could dive into those when I get home. But I know it's going to be silent, and I know that I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to miss it a little bit.
I'm not in my element.
It's just weird. It's weird going to places where it's, like, silent. It's weird when you go out with friends that you've been, like, dying to go out and, like, have a drink, but you're just, like, you catch yourself checking your phone, like, oh, I should probably go home. I should probably go home.
Right.
Even though.
For me, it's not necessarily noise, but singing. My girls, like, while they're playing, while they're eating, I mean, anything and everything that they do, they're always, like, humming or singing.
That's such a good sign, though.
Right?
They're, like, secure and happy and comfort.
They are pretty happy kids, I guess.
Yeah.
We try.
I think we always see the worst of it, so, like, we assume, like, why are our kids so angry and mad at us? But, like, when my kids are at other places, they're so much more well-behaved. I'm like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
And then I take it home, and they're just, like, throw off their clothes, jumping up and down the couches, like, everything's a mess, dumping out, like, the worst noise ever when you, like, just clean their room and you hear the rattle of the last toys out of the toy bin.
Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, like, that's my house right now. Like I said, I like to keep it clean, so when it's not, I'm just, like, super, drives me crazy, and I know that when I walk in, there's going to be, like, 3 loads of laundry on the dining room table, because it doesn't fit us anymore anyway, so it's just become our laundry bin. There's going to be, like, all their clothes from today, because they have to wear, like, 3 different outfits.
Of course.
Because they get food on everything, and Boone's at this stage where if his shirt gets a little bit wet, he's got to take off the entire wardrobe and start again. Yeah. Like, I keep trying to, like, communicate the concept of dry. Like, a thing's dry. It takes a little bit of time, but he's not understanding
Just needs a new shirt, Mom.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We can't have this.
Next week will be the concept of, like, preserving water.
There you go. There you go.
I'm not doing this many loads of laundry.
Yeah. Girls are into outfit changes as well. And not because they're dirty, just because, you know, they need a new dress on because now they're a different princess and that dress didn't match that idea.
I feel it, though. I mean, if I was at work and could, like, swap out mid-shift.
This is how I'm
like,
feeling
you know
right
what?
now.
I was feeling this earlier, now I'm feeling more like tracksuit.
Yeah.
pajama bottoms.
If only we could do that, right?
Right. Yeah, I'll go in, there'll be dishes everywhere. I know, like, I'm, like, trying to think if there's one room that's clean right now. I'm like, oh, it's all making my stomach turn just thinking about it.
So how do you navigate that, then? Because clearly sometimes we have to just kind of step away from that so what we can do, like you said, projects that we want to work on. And, you know, become, you know, not mom for just a second.
Yeah.
Like, how do you manage just pushing that all to the side?
A lot of talking myself up, a lot of building it up, a lot of, like, it'll be fine.
It's gonna be good.
It'll be fine. Think of how much proud and happy and, like, how good you're gonna feel once you get this project finished. Like, just take the time for yourself. I'm trying to look at it more of as a, like, a treat yourself project instead of a, like, I don't know, instead of I'm skipping out on doing anything. And Derek, he's really good at keeping the house clean. He's there for, like, 3 days. I'm there for 2 days. So, like, he has we have opposite schedules, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So when he's there, he's really good at keeping the house clean and doing all of those things. I'm really good at, like, doing, like, the little odd and then, like, going to the grocery store with the kids and doing, like, the different things that we have to do.
Right.
And, like, I like folding laundry. Like, getting super stoned and folding laundry is quite possibly the next big thing in therapy.
Mine's dishes for some reason.
Really?
I always find myself.
That's Derek. Like, he loves dishes, and I really don't mind folding laundry, so it kind of balances out there.
There you go. That sounds like a pretty rounded team to me.
Yeah, so as long as we do that, okay, like, and I keep telling myself, it'll get clean again, it's just not right now.
Right. The day will come when it'll be done. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my dear, I am so glad that you came in and sat and chatted with me, and we got to discuss all of the things, all of the many things. And like I said, I am so freaking proud of how brave you are and, like, just putting it out there and turning to your authentic self and letting people see you for who you are.
Thank you.
That's really hard to do.
That's why I'm glad you had me here today, because I was just like, you know, I had kind of been away from it a little bit, but I was like, no, I know that was the thing. I need to get back out there and just be there for people to see, you know, stop being afraid again. So
awesome.
It brought me back.
Awesome. Well, thank you, my dear. You're great. And first live stream, so there's that.
In a while. I didn't know where to look for a long time.
We found it, I guess.
We found it.
Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to help support Unraveling with Rayne, go to patreon.com/unravelingwithrayne. When you become a patron, you receive bonus content such as